Hello everybody. So in the beginning, we talked about how electromagnetic energy is the basis of our universe. And we went further on to mention that there's sections or limitations or groups of these energies that create frequencies, and how those frequencies on a atomic level through the double slit method or the double slit experiment, how they transition into particles. Okay, so they're waves and they're particles on a certain level, and that's how we get to this level. And then we went over how there are specific frequencies that directly become part of your body, that we're a part of this system, we're a part of this perfection, of this word. And I also mentioned, I mentioned 7, which leaves, and I said there's 12 altogether in one of the videos. There's 6 on the top and there's 6 on the bottom. And quickly, to mention the other 5, which we are anyway, but they have more to do with the mirror system and the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and aether. So, in a practice that's outside of monotheism, the chakras are used to know yourself. You study an internal study through meditation. You study these energies and how they affect you. They come with feelings, they come with parts of your body, there's other parts, but they're also expanded, because we also mentioned that there was a lot more than 7 chakras, but they're the basis, and once they're the easiest to get to know, and they're the topic of study for apprentice. So moving on from that, the evolution of that knowledge, and once you learn the 7 chakras, the other 5 chakras are introduced in your schooling. From what I've gathered, it could be a lot of different ways. But now we have 12 chakras, and we also mentioned that the system is a holographic system, so there must be 12 juxtaposed. There's got to be a lot, because it's, like we said in the very, very beginning, it's kind of like a mirror looking on itself and looking into infinity. But at some point, you're going to have a limitation, or you won't be able to observe. It'll be just too much. Okay. So the 12 chakras, the 7 that are actual parts of your body, which is conscious energy, and the 5 that are still part of your body, but mostly on the outside. Within those are 12 other chakras. And what are 12 12s? Right, 144. So that's a big deal, because we already know those things. We already hear that number. That's a very prominent number in the Christian world, because it has to do with Christ, and it has to do with prophecy. Okay, and there's also other things that we know that talk about this stuff that we're not really used to. We're not really, we don't really understand certain things. So in Hebrew mysticism, they really deal with 72, because they're on a specific mission from the God of Abraham. So I'm not making an argument, I'm just making a statement from my own education. And they're completely focused on becoming man, becoming creator. Okay, and they're leaving out the feminine aspect. That's why there's 72. Okay, and if you're over 35, at this point in time, it's 2025, you've heard it before. When the wars in the Gulf were going on, when we were younger, there were some religious activities, and they believe there was a belief system that we were introduced to, that if they passed defending their people and their country, that they would receive 72 virgins in the afterlife. Now that's just confirming what I'm saying, that it's all the same, no matter what. When you get into spirituality, everything ends the same. It's all the same. No matter how we want to argue about it, no matter what anybody says or how you look at it, it all comes down to what I've been speaking about. So now we get into which is pretty simple. I'm missing quite a bit. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. But it's all easily, you can look it up, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of different ways of looking at it, and you can pick which one that you like the most. But if you do any kind of study like this, you're gonna find out that eventually you're gonna see a pattern of each thing that everybody's talking about. It's gonna pretty much level out, depending on how active you are in searching. But it doesn't matter, because we're at the end of a specific point, and that's why evolution is so important right now. And getting unconfused is important. And like I mentioned before, focusing on your heart center and the light within is really the most important thing at this point in time. So now what we're gonna go into now is being part of the game and what we are experiencing. And I mentioned two important points last video that mentioned the thymus gland in your body and an AI. I spoke about it for a quick second. So the thymus gland is important because this is where your soul enters your body. Okay, I'm just going to cut through the junk and we're just going to talk about it. So, which is a frequency, right? So what people talk about love, when they say love, and nobody can define it, nobody understands what it is. You know, we got physical love, we got mental love, we got loves of things, we have all kinds of love that we dictate. The closest, of course, which I'm gonna talk about now, would be the frequency love. Okay, which I'm pretty sure I gave you the solfeggio frequency of that when I mentioned the heart chakra. Okay, now that's going to be the closest because that's how you're going to feel it without having any clouds or any misconceptions. Because love is the frequency, and when your frequency is active, your true frequency is active, it allows your heart to be open, and then that allows your soul to enter your body. The soul of us, the soul of Christ, you become Christ in. It's not quite that easy, but that's the end game. At the point right now where we're at, this is not open for most people. And it's going to get complicated because that's what I'm going to talk about now. That's why I mentioned the 72. So your 7 chakras plus the 5 chakras, that's 12. That's our immediate reality. That's our body and our surroundings. Now those chakras have 12 chakras within them. And they all need to be open. They all need to be balanced. So by being open, what I'm meaning is that they need to be balanced. They can't be at any extreme. They can't be too far feminine, and they can't be too far masculine, and they can't be floating around somewhere in the sphere. They have to be at the center of the sphere, focused. Like I showed you in the Taurus. That's where the home of each frequency is, and that's how you align yourself. You always hear people talk about alignment and things like that. Well, that's what it is. On a scale that we can comprehend with our mind, because you're going to have feeling, it's going to be part of it, your emotions are going to be part of it, just like the rest of your whole life is all those things, and they all come together. So the game we're playing right now, and why I mentioned AI, is because when I spoke about the thymus gland, I said that it shuts off at a young age. Now, if you know anything about Dr. Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who talks about epigenetics and things like that, he comes from a Hebrew tradition, and what they is part of their tradition is they say, give me a boy till he's 7 years old and I will teach him everything he needs to know. Okay, so that I'm just giving you a reference. That is what the thymus gland is open, and your soul, the fragment of your soul, is training your body, is training the other conscious energies within you and creating habits for them. And that's a direct line to your soul. And then it closes down because you have to live your life according to those things. It's complicated, but you kind of understand what I'm saying, hopefully. So after that closes down, we become in a state. It's not missing, by the way, because like I said before, there's no such thing as subtraction. So you're not away from your soul. All 144 chakras, all 12 chakras, they all exist all the time. Closing down might not be the best word. Something is put over it. How about that? So it's covered. There's a wall that's built. It's normal. That's supposed to happen. That's what happens in this dimension. That's why we have all these things, because we are simulating that we can live without the power of our soul, without the existence of the divine. Okay, and we create things that don't have that geometry, and we understand that that's what it is. That it deteriorates fast. Everything just goes away. It's all kind of garbage anyway. That's what we're making right now, in my country anyway. But at this point, your thymus gland stops working for energetic reasons, and you become autopilot. You become your ego. You no longer have, there's a voice, it's still in there. Jesus never leaves you. This is where your faith comes in. The chakras never completely shut down. You can close them down, and yes, you can sell your soul, what you have of it, the energy within you, the drive within you, the joy within you, the idea that there's something bigger than you that's good and can benefit mankind is still within you. It doesn't go away. You just don't have direct contact with your soul, with who you really are, the God within you. Okay? That's part of the game. It's okay. What I'm saying is, basically, we are the AI that has been programmed by our soul, because we all have one soul, and our soul is trying to create the body, which is us, to live. And I'm not gonna make that. To live in this world, especially holding this. Let's just skip that. And like I said, that's where our faith comes in. To live in a world that is deceptively without God. Which that's another subject we're going to have to go over later, because the idea or the subject of God is also very interesting when we start talking about Christ. And also in all traditions, all traditions prior to our monotheistic education, which even includes our monotheistic education, because Enoch and Elisha and Elijah, and there's a list, they all ascended. Okay, they all made the grade. They all did well. That's what their stories are about, actually. And there's other accounts of evolving from their humanness in all traditions, but we really don't get into that because most people don't study that stuff and it doesn't matter. Anyway, right now we are in a mass we have possibilities to be in a mass evolution, which we want. You are my soul, I am your soul, all humanity. As I mentioned in the first one, we live in these frequencies. That's what we are. We are these frequencies, and we're all the same frequencies. 144 of them. Okay, and there's more than that, but those are the major ones because we need those because that's the top of the list. Those are the ones that create this illusion, and it's an illusion because we can create without using the proper functions, the proper realities. So once we understand that nothing's actually wrong, no one's actually broken, nothing's actually happening that's bad that we're not creating, right? And this is where I would like to get into one point that is really interesting to me, especially as a Christian, especially as someone who throughout all of their life wanted to work for God or be Jesus or, whatever the church promises. We bought into all that stuff. And right now we're at a really interesting time, in my opinion, personally, that we have these prophecies of damnation and the destruction of the earth, and everybody's going to be killing everybody, and everybody's going to be hating everybody, and everybody's going to be, what's going on right now. Those are prophecies that happened thousands of years ago. They weren't here. They're not here right now. But why are there people carrying this stuff out? Why are our brothers and sisters and fathers and grandpas carrying this kind of prophecy out when there's also another prophecy, especially if you actually do follow Christ? Christ said we will be doing way more than he was doing. He was just messing around. It's not written like that, but you get the point. Christ said, we will tell the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. Now, those are prophecies because he's speaking of the future, and those are written. A little bit different than I'd said them, but you get the point, because if you've read it, you know what I'm saying. So why aren't we focusing on the prophecies of Christ, on the prophecies of evolving into Christ beings, Christ-like beings? Christ means he's completely active and he's become the soul of mankind. So in a way, how can we all be one soul? How can we all be, one thing? Is, for example, your hippie aunt or somebody who has those crystals in their windows, and when the sun hits that crystal, it reflects a bunch of little rainbows all over the room. Or the Pink Floyd shirt with the pyramid on it and the white light going in and the rainbow coming out. Well, that's one. The light in and of itself is representing oneness. The whatever's refracting the light, whether it's a crystal or a crystal pyramid or whatever, the rain, is a distortion, like a distortion pattern, like the double slit experiment. There's more, but that's a really cool one. And the reflection of the refraction that's coming off, and those little rainbows are pieces of that light being projected into the atmosphere or into wherever you can see them. That's the way I like to look at it, because I can visually see that in reality. I know that there's a ray of sun or light going into something that's distorting, that's separating the pattern, because it's always the same and it's always perfect. And it leaves an imprint of that separation on your surroundings. But it's never separate anyway. It's all light. And you're seeing it as light. You're just seeing it as a portion of light instead of pure full frequency light. So I hope this kind of helps. It's a little far out because we're looking at, I personally think, looking at it from an opposite direction. Looking at it objectively, we can allow ourselves as an individual to organize what we need, because there's no blanket statement for anybody anymore, and your soul also has a task or an idea or something it wants to accomplish at this point, which could be really minuscule. You don't even know. Sometimes it gets pretty cool. But this is for those who just want to know. This is for the people who do things every day. We love creating. We love doing things. This is our, job. Even if it's, attached to slave labor or doing things for other people or, bowing to authority, it's all BS. But we love to do things. And this can help see how the distortion patterns are being created around us and what that means and what we're learning. And I think overall, which is just my opinion at this point, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot that I'm not saying, but I think it's to help us understand as this being, as this human, as this culture of a creature, that doing things outside of God, if you need to hear it that way, or not using the geometry, the perfection of geometry, the reality of what already exists, nature would be one of them, because nature grows in perfect geometry whether you can't see it or not. If you studied it, you would definitely see it, because it's that simple. I forgot the distortion patterns are our learning experience. To move with the word, to move with the nature, not only of the outside of us, the nature inside of us, which we also know, which we've been going over. And now it's time, I think, as a collective, there's only a few people causing all the problems, and we're supporting them anyway. Now is the time for us to internally agree, and you're probably already doing this, that there's a better way. And it involves our ego, because that's what we need to live here. That's what we need to be in this experience. Your body's like an Oculus. It's a package. You might have heard people call it a meat suit. Or something like that. It's because they're speaking of spirituality as the reality of existence, and your body, and this is an illusion, and we've already went over all that. And now we kind of are getting an understanding, maybe, of why we're putting ourselves through this education. And I hope that gives you some kind of insight on, or hope, at least a little hope, because there's no reason to live like this, and we know it. And this is the end of this game, and it's already over, and we need to move on. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of power who are having trouble letting go, and a lot of us actually support that, whether you know it or not. I know I do, because I look into my actions and what I do. Even just being kind right now is a lot. I can't believe I'm with Snoop Dogg. I can't believe we got to make a commercials about not hating each other. That's some crazy shit. So be kind to others, be kind to yourself, and let's start creating a future that doesn't have to be so destructive, at least on a global scale.